Alright, imagine this. You wake up one day and decide you want to learn a new language. You open up an app, start practicing some words, and within a few minutes, you're totally lost. Why does it feel so easy to learn some languages while others seem impossible? Why can a kid in Japan pick up Japanese so naturally, but an adult struggles for years? And why do some languages have weird sounds, impossible grammar, and words that take up an entire sentence? Well, today, we're diving deep into the science of language learning, the reasons why some languages are harder than others, and what your brain has to go through just to communicate. The basics of language learning. Before we get into why some languages are harder, let's look at how we even learn languages in the first place. When you're a baby, your brain is like a sponge. It's designed to absorb any language you hear. You don't even need to try. But as you get older, your brain specializes in the sounds and grammar of your native language. This means that learning a new one takes more effort because your brain isn't as flexible anymore. That's why kids can pick up multiple languages easily, while adults need years of practice. But don't worry, it's still possible to learn a new language at any age. It just depends on what language you're learning and how similar it is to your native one. What makes a language hard or easy? Not all languages are created equal. Some are easier for certain people, while others feel impossible. Here's what makes a language harder to learn. Different alphabet or writing system. If you speak English and try to learn Spanish or French, no problem, they use the same alphabet. But if you try to learn Mandarin Chinese, suddenly, you're dealing with thousands of characters instead of 26 letters. Languages like Arabic, Russian, or Korean have entirely different writing systems, meaning you have to learn new symbols just to read and write. Sounds you've never heard before. Every language has unique sounds, and if your native language doesn't have them, your brain struggles to recognize them. For example, English speakers have a hard time with tonal languages like Mandarin, where the tone changes the meaning of a word. Some African languages, like Xhosa, have click sounds that are completely foreign to most speakers. Grammar rules that make no sense. English speakers struggle with German word order because verbs go at the end of sentences. Japanese and Korean use particles instead of word order to indicate meaning. In Arabic, words change form based on the context, making sentences hard to structure. Word complexity. Some languages have long, complicated words that express entire sentences. In German, the word Donaudampfschifffahrtsgesellschaftskapitän means Danube Steamship Company captain. In Inuit languages, a single word can describe an entire action. Lack of familiarity. The more exposure you have to a language, the easier it is to learn. If you grow up hearing Spanish on TV, it will be easier to learn than something like Thai, which you've never heard before. Languages ranked by difficulty. According to linguists, here's how languages are ranked in terms of difficulty for English speakers. Easiest languages, takes about 6 to 12 months to learn. Spanish, French, Italian, Dutch, Swedish. Medium difficulty, takes about 1 to 2 years to learn. Russian, Hindi, Greek, Turkish. Hardest languages, takes 2+ years to learn. Mandarin Chinese, Japanese, Korean, Arabic, Hungarian. The harder the language, the more time and effort it takes to master. But if you put in the work, anything is possible. The brain's struggle with language. Your brain actually fights back when you try to learn a new language. It relies on your first language, so when you hear a word in a new language, it tries to fit it into what it already knows. This is why accents exist. Your brain uses the sounds it's familiar with, even when they don't belong in the new language. Over time, your brain rewires itself, but it takes consistent practice to make the language feel natural. Some people are naturally better at languages, but anyone can learn one with enough exposure. Are some languages more advanced than others? A common myth is that some languages are more advanced than others, but that's not true. Every language is perfectly designed for the people who speak it. Some languages are short and direct, like English, while others are more poetic and descriptive, like Italian or Arabic. Just because a language has more words or more grammar rules doesn't mean it's better, just different. So, even if a language seems impossible, it's just a matter of getting used to it. Before we wrap up, let's take a closer look at some hidden factors that make learning a new language even harder, or surprisingly easier. 1. Your native language shapes how you learn. One of the biggest hidden influences on language learning is the language you already speak. If your native language is similar to the one you're learning, it's easier. But if it's completely different, your brain has to work much harder. For example, if you speak English, learning Dutch is much easier than learning Mandarin because Dutch and English come from the same language family. If you speak Japanese, learning Korean is easier than learning French, because Japanese and Korean share similar grammar rules. Some languages even have shared vocabulary. About 40% of English words come from French, so an English speaker can often guess the meaning of French words even without studying. But if you're learning Chinese or Arabic, there's almost zero overlap, making it harder. 2. The age factor. Are adults worse at learning languages? You've probably heard that kids learn languages faster than adults. And while that's partially true, adults actually have some advantages too. Kids have brains that are more flexible, making it easier for them to pick up sounds and accents. But adults have better problem-solving skills, meaning they can actively study grammar rules and learn faster in certain ways. So, while kids absorb language more naturally, adults can use logic and strategy to speed up the learning process. The best approach? Immerse yourself like a child, but also study actively like an adult. That's the fastest way to learn any language. 3. The role of culture in language learning. Languages are not just words and grammar, they are deeply connected to culture. Some languages express ideas differently, which can make learning them a challenge. In Japanese, you use different words depending on whether you're speaking formally or casually. In Russian, there are words with meanings that don't fully exist in English. In Arabic, the way you pronounce words can change their meaning entirely. Understanding cultural context can help you grasp language faster. That's why watching foreign movies, listening to music, or even visiting the country makes learning a new language much easier. 4. The science of forgetting. Why we lose new languages. Here's something frustrating. You spend months learning a language, but then you stop practicing and forget everything. Why does that happen? Your brain is always clearing out information that it thinks is not important. If you don't use a language regularly, your brain treats it as useless information and starts erasing it. That's why people who stop speaking a language for years often lose fluency. The good news? You can reactivate a forgotten language much faster than learning it from scratch. Even if you haven't spoken a language in years, with practice and exposure, your brain can reconnect the knowledge much faster. 5. Will AI replace language learning? With translation apps and AI, will humans even need to learn languages in the future? Right now, AI can translate languages instantly, but it still struggles with context, humor, and emotion. Language is more than just words, it's about culture, connection, and thinking in a new way. While AI might help with basic communication, it's unlikely to replace the need for human language learning anytime soon. So if you're thinking, why should I learn another language when I have Google Translate? Just remember, nothing beats real human connection. Final thoughts. So, why are some languages harder to learn? It's all about how different they are from what you already know, how your brain processes new sounds and structures, and whether you're actively using the language. But no matter how hard a language is, you can learn anything with enough effort. And hey, if you enjoyed this, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on more mind-blowing topics like this one. Stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one.